So,
Let me read the wonderful precursor announcement.
Thank you, Ed.
I hope someone's taking minutes, please.
I am.
Okay, thank you. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 and March 23rd order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting in the town of Southampton Capital Improvement Committee being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so by going to zoom.us/join, hit join a meeting in the top right of the screen, type in the meeting ID number 6491874553 and the password of 780327, hit join, and please be sure to mute your device when joining in. Note, and join in video meeting with cell phone, you will need to download the Zoom app from the App Store. The dial-in phone number for this meeting is area code 646-558-8656.
Yeah.
So
Ed, you don't have that memorized yet, Ed?
No, the hard part is remembering to change the Zoom ID and the Zoom password on each one of these each time. And in this case, I had
memorization's coming.
Committee number.
Yeah.
So I didn't write that all down.
It's fine. It's fine. All right, guys. So I want to try to keep this short and sweet for all of us. Sharon, do we have any? This might be leading, and I probably should have emailed you about this, but it just occurred to me. Do we have any minutes that we need to approve off the top of your head?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think so. I think we did approve our last ones.
I think so too.
Okay.
But I did want to ask that, do we need to restructure?
Great question, and we can do that because we've got any new business that we can do. So I'm happy to entertain that now for sure.
So
Except it's not on the agenda.
Well, under any new business? No, I mean we probably should. I was the vice chair,
Which means you can run the meeting, and you're still down a member, so you could theoretically wait until you have 5 members again if you wanted to, but it's your prerogative.
What do you guys want to do?
I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt to wait and just run it the way we have it for now.
You okay with that, Sharon? I'm happy to do the chair work at being the vice chair of this right now. If that's okay with you. If it's not okay, then I'm happy to restructure it. It's totally fine.
That's okay. It was just a question I put out.
How about you, Margaret?
Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine waiting.
Okay. So we'll wait until we get another interested member. Worth probably mentioning that obviously we're looking for another member. So if you know of anybody that might be a good fit or interested, it'd be great to get multiple candidates to consider. So we can all try to source that. I'm assuming nobody has a report. We approved our minutes. We just talked about restructuring. The purpose of why we're calling this meeting is really twofold. We finally got the details of the late requests for the Hampshire Regional, our portion of the HVAC system at Hampshire Regional, which we'll go into in a little bit of detail. So we've got to try to incorporate that into our request schedule, given that the other, that's a 5-town, membership at Hampshire Regional under that agreement. And so the other 5 towns, to my knowledge, Ed, I believe all 5 towns have approved this already, and have either passed it at their town meetings or at least have it on board to do that.
3 of them have. Goshen and Southampton have not had their annual town meeting yet.
And so we've got to get this on our town meeting so that, you know, we're not the one that's necessarily blocking this. And we'll consider it and talk about it. And Margaret has most of the information associated with it. So that's kind of reason number one. And then reason number two is, obviously, as you've heard, we, you know, our annual town meeting and election have all been postponed. Like they're in August. We're doing our annual town meeting outside. It's going to be hot. Weather considerations, et cetera. We're trying to abbreviate this and keep it efficient as much as possible. And by doing so, you know, make sure that we're only proposing articles that are kind of necessary, more of an urgent need, things that couldn't be put off to, say, a fall, you know, a late fall town meeting, which I guess we're all more hopeful will be, has the chance of being more regular, depending on your perspective. At least that's kind of the hope. We just don't want to keep people out too much in the heat and in the weather, given that our town meeting is going to be outside. So we're going to kind of go through our capital requests again and see where we can fit certain things in. So Margaret, before we do that, and before I share my screen with the spreadsheet that Ed and I put together, did you just want to briefly chat about the HVAC system so that the other two members of this board are filled in on it? Or do you?
Well, I think everyone knows what the request was for, right?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff that they were requesting.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff they were requesting, and everything except the HVAC has been pulled back.
Okay.
So some things we're going to just try to fund through, you know, other measures, or put it off. The blue lights for the alarm system. So for people who are hearing impaired, or kids who are outside, or kids who are in the drama room or the chorus room, whenever they get back to those places again, that whole system, if there's a fire alarm or anything, is now being paid for via a grant that they received. So those are the two main items that are going to be fulfilled this year: HVAC system and the blue lights.
So I just have a question. Did anybody look at the HVAC system there as part of the COVID CARES Act? Looking into the ventilation system.
I don't have an answer for that. I can find out if they did that. You mean in case there's anything extra that they need to do?
Or if there is extra that's
funding,
and could this be incorporated in there?
If
that grant request.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that any additional requirements could be covered by the CARES Act. I'm not sure that just a regular, hey, you know, the heating and cooling system is whack, would get us anywhere. I don't know.
Yeah, Sharon, I mean, my perspective on this, just in hearing about this a few times at the select board level and also at the school committee level, and I don't want to project too much, but I'm not sure how this would apply, mostly because, like, it's not like they're redoing the mechanical nature of the HVAC system. It's not like all of the ductworks and the filtration and UV, and like it's not the whole shooting match here. I mean, we're preserving ducts, we're preserving a certain amount of mechanicals. Like, we're basically taking care of the system that's failing, that they've had to repair multiple times, that's caused some pipes to burst in the school, which you might remember last year and the year before. Like, that did come up at a select board level. I know that somebody asked, it wasn't me, but somebody asked the question of, like, you know, are we taking into account like COVID and air filtration and air circulation and air exchange? And, you know, unfortunately or unfortunately, we're not. I mean, I'm sure that those costs would be tremendous, but would they come under CARES? I mean, that would be, you know, maybe they would, but that's definitely not the scope of this right now.
No, I understand that this is important, and I really feel that it is, and would like to move forward with it. I just didn't know if anybody was looking at the whole system, you know, the system as a whole for ventilation.
Yeah, and pretty much to this point, whether it's FEMA reimbursement or under the CARES Act, they really are not entertaining, I'll say, any substantial capital projects with that. funding.
Okay. All right. So Ed and I worked a little bit on this afternoon. We both kind of contributed on this, and hopefully this makes our lives a little bit easier. First, I'm going to share my screen here so you all can see this.
What?
Yeah. If you guys make fun of me because I got to put my glasses on, I'm leaving.
Mine are on.
Making fun of
Mine are
you.
on.
Mine are already on.
Mine are
All
on.
right. So I don't want you folks to
Oh, there it is.
I don't want you to have to trust me too much, or Ed for that matter. But this spreadsheet is the spreadsheet that Charlie sent out. This is what we approved based on our last meeting. So this was everything that we did in late February that we approved, and we categorized into the categories of borrowing, debt exclusion, capital, free cash. If you have a copy of this, it is sitting in your email. And I can kind of scroll down slowly on this so that you can see it. But more importantly, this isn't in Excel, so it's harder to manipulate for the purposes of this meeting.
Matt, where did the camera systems go for the library?
Yeah, so that's right here. Yep, so library's right.
Okay,
right
that's
here.
part of the security system?
Yep, security system right here.
Okay.
All right. But basically what Ed and I did is we took this exact table with even the notes next to it where we categorized everything, and we dropped it into Excel, which is where I'd like to work for the purposes of this meeting. And I'll blow this up. Okay, so how are we doing on font and seeing here? I made it very big. It's 18 font on my screen. Can you all see this?
I can see it okay.
Ask
Okay.
Roger.
Great. All right, so this in yellow is our original funding plan, and over here in column D in this column is where we were going to be taking the money. Okay, this does not account for, this accounts for everything that we talked about, but if you remember from the February meeting, we didn't all we had were the full Hampshire regional numbers at that meeting, like the entire cost of the project. It was of every project, and there were multiple ones, but we didn't have our allocation at that time, so we weren't really able to do much with it. It was more questions, and we had it at the bottom, but we didn't really account for it. So what we have here, just to summarize, 2 trucks for the highway department, security system for the library, wide format scanner for the building department. The school's got a PA system, gutter repairs, bathroom dividers, oven, the hood fire suppression system, replacing laptops for teachers and room projectors. Police, we got portable radios, tasers, and a cruiser. Fire department, thermal imaging cameras. Town hall, telephone system, and desktop computers. And then this one we put in here, but this one was all of the question marks. We didn't know this number. We didn't know the 55,000. We didn't know any part of it. So this one was kind of in the question. We didn't really categorize it at all, which is why we have borrowing here.
I'm sorry. The 55,000 for the HV system for the school, that's our portion, or that total for it?
Our portion, correct.
Okay.
Yep. That's our allotted portion for the entire project. I forget, I think the entire project's 270, Margaret.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
So that trickles down to, and you can see in this far right-hand column, I'm not sure how it's showing up in your computers, but column D here, this column, we categorized each one of these into the appropriate buckets for the funds that we have access to. A capital improvement, op stabilization, free cash, and then obviously short-term borrowing and debt exclusion. So these items trickle down to these total numbers here. So our original work, we were going to be taking $148,000, call it $149,000 from our capital stabilization account. And then right here, you can see that this is the value currently in that account. So we have $154,500 in that account. We were going to borrow, call close to $500,000. That borrowing, we did total that into with the HVAC system, but basically that borrowing, hold on, my computer's frozen. That borrowing is the HVAC system, the police cruiser, and the 2 highway vehicles. Okay, that's where the 500 comes from. The 2 highway vehicles, the police cruiser, and we did rope in the HVAC system at HRHS. Free cash and op stabilization, we originally approved the thermal imaging cameras at the fire and the desktop computers at the town hall. That's originally where we were taking about $15,000 of free cash. And as you can see, our free cash account presently is a little north of $20,000.
Okay.
Any questions on where our starting point here? This is what we've already done. This is what we've approved.
No, it's helpful. It's helpful to see it laid out again.
Okay. So I'm going to scroll down to the green, which is a mirror image of the top with some suggestions that Ed and I have done some pre-work on that our committee needs to make some decisions on. Let me just kind of move. I got to move you guys around here. There we go. Okay. So, and Ed's done some legwork on this where he's talked to the department heads and with the goal of not necessarily eliminating the project entirely, but potentially taking it off of this town meeting and putting it on one in the fall. So we'll just kind of go down the list, and I think what we should do is just see where we agree, where we disagree, and if we need to take votes, then we will individually, or we can approve this whole thing as is at the end if we don't have any major disagreements. So
and one thing you will have to do because of our bylaws is anything that is recommended for borrowing, you should take action and a vote on that, separately as an individual item, because the bond council will want to come back and look at that. And then
now on the borrowing, would that affect the townspeople on that, or is that from borrowing from somewhere else? Where is that borrowing coming from?
So we have the decision on that to either have it come from short-term borrowing, and I discussed this with Ed, so he can fill in the details if I'm wrong here. But short-term borrowing would be within our 2.5 allotment. The debt exclusion would be outside of 2.5 and have to go on an election ballot. No,
correct.
Those are really
I was just thinking if we went to the tax people, I think that a lot of people are really strapped and probably wouldn't pass going through, and it'd be a waste of time.
Yep.
To do it that way.
Yep, I agree.
And I'll also just remind you that all your votes need to be by roll call vote.
Okay.
Okay. So let's look at highway department here. Ed spoke with Randall, and the recommendation, that several things worth mentioning out of that conversation. It seems like Randall and Ed came to the agreement, and I tend to agree with this personally as well, that going forth with asking for 2 trucks, especially in these times at a town meeting, voters may or may not, voters probably won't be sympathetic to that. And so the risk would be that if we go with 2, we might get none. But if we go with 1, we might get 1. And my personal sense on this is that, look, like I have taken a tour of that garage. I think we've all gotten really good pictures from that department on the condition of some of these older vehicles. Obviously, Roger, you've lived through this. Like, yeah. I do think that replacement of some of these vehicles is long overdue. And personally, I'd like to see both of them replaced, but I do appreciate the strategy that Ed and Randall are coming forth with, that if we go with 2, the townspeople might just think we're totally crazy. And so, like, what is the number 1 priority? And according to Randall, the number 1 priority is the 1-ton Ford F-550 equivalent, the one I've highlighted here for $140,000. That's the one
that sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we'd like to do, what Ed has proposed on this one, is to, rather than do so this is a decision that we need to make here. So are we in agreement of taking off and postponing until the fall at least the single axle dump truck for $247,000?
Yes.
Yes, I'd prefer to wait on that.
Okay. Ed, should we take a vote on removing that?
Or can we table it for a later, to act on it later?
You might want to take a vote to consider it, to bring it back for a special fall town meeting or a special town meeting.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion to remove this from this town meeting? Roger Ball, will make a motion to remove that from the table till the fall, or if things change we can afford it.
Seconded.
Seconded. All right, roll call vote. Margaret?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Not John. Looks like you're not John there, Sharon.
Hi.
Your screen says John. I don't know if you can
Because John's used this.
I know. And Matt Rowland, aye. Okay, so that one's off. Now for the 1 ton, we approved. And Ed, do you want to just leave this alone and just say borrowing on this and have you figure it out, or is it more appropriate for us to vote on whether we would like it to see it go to a debt exclusion or regular borrowing?
No, I don't want to compound it and have you vote like to be a debt exclusion, and then if we don't do a debt exclusion, have bond counsel say, well, this was supposed to be a debt exclusion. So if we're going to move forward with it, I would probably recommend that the committee vote to recommend to have it on this one, and recommend $140,000 be borrowed.
Okay. That is where we stand right now. Is everybody still okay with that under, what we're trying to do here?
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Do we need to re-vote on this, Ed? It's already on there.
Yeah, because just so we don't go back to the original meeting and find out there wasn't a specific vote on the borrowing. I know bond counsel is going to want to see the minutes from this meeting.
Okay, so who wants to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Margaret?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Matt, aye. Okay, so we're good with highway. So we've reduced this to the new total of $140,000, and it removes the single axle dump truck. Sorry for the scrolling. It removes the single axle dump. Everybody okay there?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, we're down to library security system. This, and I personally agree with this. The security system at the library is fine, as we know. This was additive and also meant to try to make it a little bit more user-friendly for having access to those front meeting rooms, et cetera, and to improve upon the system. This is something that certainly can wait. Now, with that being said, when my personal opinion is on this, and I hope you all agree, but maybe you don't. When I say wait, I don't mean like totally cancel, not fun, this isn't important anymore. It's just simply to take this amount of money, account for it, which I'll show you lower down in the spreadsheet, put it off to the fall, reserve the money for it so that we can put it on at a town meeting later on. But yet, it's still considered important. It's still kind of technically approved. We're just not going to add it as an article on this meeting. So we're not like canceling it, discarding it, et cetera. We're just kind of postponing it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So does anybody want to make a motion to postpone this until the fall?
I'll make a
go ahead.
the fall.
No, go ahead.
The security system.
Roger, you second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, Margaret?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
John, not John, Sharon.
Aye.
I'm looking at your thing here. Matt, aye. We probably should have lumped these together. I wish I did. Building department, we're looking at doing the same thing, accounting for the money, and postponing it to the fall and keeping it on our list for the fall.
So moved.
All right.
Going faster than I can write. Okay. This is for the building department?
Yep, the
Yes,
scanner.
The white permit scanner.
Margaret made the motion.
Second.
Everybody say aye.
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 Okay.
All in favor?
Ed, are you cool with how we're executing this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, now we're down to Norris School. And a couple of good news items here. We are taking off the bathroom dividers for $86.50, and we're taking off the classroom projectors for $6,400. The school was able to purchase them within their budget before the past fiscal year closed.
Nice.
Oh, good.
That was
Yep. So we're going to be removing those entirely, and I've taken the liberty of doing that. So what I'd like to see on this one is we'll just kind of do a combined motion to remove those and then approve the rest. And then what we really need to decide here, which I've spoke about with Ed, and I have some opinions on this that I'd like to share. I'm sure Ed does too. But basically what we're trying to do here is determine, previously we took these out of the capital account. That's where they were getting funded. We want to consider whether we want to continue taking them out of the capital account or whether we want to borrow for them in totality. The reasons for a reason for borrowing is that we could lump. So I'm just going to try to be as neutral as I can on this without. I will share my ultimate opinion on this, but I'm going to try to be as neutral as I can at first. The reason for bundling them together under a borrowing would be because we could potentially do that under one article instead of 5 individual ones.
Yeah.
It might make the meeting a little bit more efficient. Although I don't see any of these being super controversial, but that is certainly something to account for. Now, borrowing requires a 2/3 majority vote. Having them approved through the capital account requires a simple majority of vote. So it's worth just kind of mentioning those two things. We know where these kind of stand on our list. My personal opinion on this is that just to share it with you, is that I would personally like to leave these coming out of the capital account as originally approved. I think that combining them into one article has just marginal improvement with the cadence of our meeting. I don't see any of these necessarily causing too much of a stir and hanging up too much time at a town meeting. And the reason why I feel that way is because frankly because of what's juxtaposed between these systems at Norris, the things that we're trying to improve at Norris, is the HVAC system at Hampshire Regional, meaning that down here, as you can see, the recommendation here based on what's going on above is to approve borrowing. If we instead approve borrowing at Norris, we're going to come down here and probably approve Hampshire Regional as capital. And my personal take on this is I just have a problem using specified town funds in our specified capital account for a shared resource up at Hampshire Regional. I don't think that that's necessarily appropriate. And I mean, that's my personal take. These funds should be used on direct town departments that Southampton entirely controls, not necessarily a shared resource. So that's kind of my personal take on the whole thing, which is why
I've always had a question about that. How can on the capital improvements? I thought that was in town only.
Yeah, I mean, technically Hampshire Regional is considered part of our town. It's just that we share that resource with 5 other towns. So we are technically responsible for it. Another thing that's worth kind of throwing out there is obviously, taking on capital from Hampshire Regional is very unprecedented. They do have a capital budget of their own by design, because every time, if they continually do this, they've got to get 5 towns to approve every capital project. So this is unprecedented. Hopefully it doesn't come to pass too many times in the future, because getting 5 towns to agree on things is extremely challenging. So
well, in addition, when the building was renovated, there was an account set up to handle things like this.
Yep.
Additional repairs, and that has now been drawn down over the last 20 years. And so, it's not that the school committee wants to be asking for this money, but we cannot handle it in our capital account.
Items this large. Yeah.
Correct.
And just for full disclosure, I am of the opposite opinion of Matt. All the other 4 towns for that HVAC repair upgrade are going to be expensing it. So therefore, by the town of Southampton wanting to borrow for it, we're going to have to take on some additional costs too, because there will have to be an agreement done with the other 4 towns to get us to allow to borrow instead of expense. So the way I looked at it is it was much cleaner and more efficient to expense through the capital account the Hampshire Regional HVAC system upgrades, and it also gave us, of the trade-off, the ability to take about four of the items from Norris School and combine them into one article and do borrowing on those under facility improvement. So it kind of, in my mind, came out a win-win on 2 fronts.
So do you have an idea of, I mean, I know there's man hours involved in developing this agreement with the regional, but what about actual costs, Ed? Do you have a sense of that?
They had mentioned what they, ballpark what they would be, and to be honest with you, that figure has slipped my mind.
But it's not thousands and thousands of dollars, right?
No, and one's already been done on this. Is my understanding at the last meeting that we had, that, you know, we're kind of changing an already drawn up document that's been done before.
Right. Yeah. But there are some costs that go along with that will be have to take up, and I believe there's some costs for the other 4 communities that they'll end up having to take up from it also.
Why would that be?
Yeah.
There's something to do the way it's broken out in the agreement.
So, you know, I tend to agree with Matt on this, primarily because there is precedence for Norris items coming out of our capital account, and I want to avoid the perception that Hampshire Regional is now going to become a standard part of you know, capital requests in the future. Doesn't mean it won't happen again at some point, but you know, I'm concerned about managing public perception about that, because we are asking people to approve quite a bit of money between the 2 schools. I understand the concern about trying to, you know, mitigate heat issues and other things at our town meeting. I'm just not sure I would mess with it at this point. That's just my opinion. Sharon, Roger, what do you guys think?
I mean, I'm kind of confused a lot about it. So I'm trying to figure it out in my head as we go. It is a lot of money between the 2 schools to fund.
Well, we know we're funding both. It's how we fund them, I think, is the question.
Yeah, I mean, one's going to be necessary to borrow, and one we have the funds to expense. So
I think I'm in line with Matt and Margaret.
I mean, it's harder to borrow because you need all the towns to be involved with it.
No, we would be doing this under short-term borrowing. So
Okay.
this would be within our 2.5 allotment. We're not doing a debt exclusion.
correct.
I think what and maybe, Ed, if I'm misspeaking, correct me, but I think it's just that the other towns have to approve the fact that we're borrowing in order to pay our portion. And so there may be some attorney costs or, you know, something associated with them approving the fact that we're taking a different tact than everybody else.
Right, but yeah, it is putting some burden back on them.
Yep.
But at that last meeting, they were good with that, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
I'm not sure that they knew, you know, that, oh, it's going to cost us a little bit of money, but I think in general, they know we need to have it, and they're leaving it up to each town to draw conclusions about how they support it.
They also recognize that they were very late too with getting us the numbers that we needed to get ultimately.
The regional, yeah, for sure.
All right. So does somebody want to make a motion on this?
Yeah, so I move that the Norris School requests come from the capital account, as I assume those has to be, what, 5 different items, Ed? And then the Hampshire Regional is borrowing, short-term borrowing.
Yeah, and I'll just clarify that the vote on the Norris School coming from the capital stabilization account is also a 2/3 vote because it's a stabilization account.
Okay.
Yeah. So all capital account votes are 2/3.
Correct, because it's a capital stabilization account. So anytime we're taking from a stabilization account, it's a 2/3 vote.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay.
And so just like in the past, we would have 5 different votes on.
You would have 5 different articles there.
Okay.
Correct.
I think we can go through those pretty quickly. We have in the past. I think the only thing that people might comment on is the laptops, because that, you know, I think people are still confused about how much technology is used in the classroom, but that is ever more important this year.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the other things will be at all questioned.
Yeah.
I'll second the motion.
Can we just make sure that the motion includes removing the bathroom dividers and the classroom projectors? Can we just add that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion.
Okay, I thought you did say 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I did, but I didn't specify. So PA system, the gutter repair, kitchen oven, the hood fire suppression, and laptops.
Who's seconding?
Oh, Sharon did.
Second. Okay.
In favor.
Roll call vote. Margaret?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye. Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
And Matt, aye. Okay. You let me know when you're caught up, Sharon.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay, so now we're down to the police department here. We've got the 12 police radios, which as you recall, that's half of what we ultimately will need to do. So we're recommending continuing to put that forward as before. We're also recommending to put forward the police cruiser under borrowing. You'll remember that that's to deal with it depends on how you want to look at it. It's either the totaled vehicle or the vehicle that we originally were scheduled to replace, which are 2 different vehicles. But that's what that cruiser is. Ed, if you want to specify exactly which one it is, that I'm fine with you doing that. But
that's fine.
Yeah. And then for the tasers, we're recommending to account for the dollars required for those 3 tasers, but to put them off into the fall. And just wondering if there's any discussion surrounding that, if anybody disagrees with that, or
is there any way to change the amount now for those and separate them so they at least have something?
Well, you want me? I think I could, if you just give me a second, I could probably tell you how much each of them are, just for discussion purposes.
42 each.
So they're about they're getting 3 of them, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's figure about $4,200 each.
Yeah.
Oh, it wouldn't make any sense to get like 1.
That's true.
It's one of those ones that they either have to have them for them all to use on a shift or not.
Yeah.
All right.
And in funding 1, it's an article, and we're trying to reduce the number of articles.
There you go.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Okay.
So postpone till fall?
postpone account for the money till fall. Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we,
Before you do that, like remove the, let's do the police as a block. We'll continue to approve the other two out of, the capital account and remove the tasers to the fall.
Well, you're going to have to take a separate vote on the cruiser for borrowing anyway.
Oh, yeah, because it's borrowing.
So
Yep.
make a motion to approve the portable radios, 12 units for capital and borrowing on the police cruiser and postponing the taser units to the fall.
Can we do all those at once, Ed?
Or separately?
I'd probably do them separately, especially the borrowing.
Okay, so
Make a
then the motion would be accept the radios and postpone the tasers. Is that right, Sharon?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, you need the roll call vote.
Margaret?
Margaret, aye.
Roger, aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Aye. Matt? Somebody want to make a motion on the cruiser for borrowing?
Roger, I'll make a motion for the police cruiser on, is that short-term borrowing?
Just say borrowing.
All right, on borrowing, for borrowing.
And the dollar amount, $56,512.74.
Okay, I make a motion for the police cruiser to be put under borrowing for $56,512.74.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Margaret, aye.
Roger?
Roger, aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And Matt, aye. And just for clarity, if you're all cool with it, just to help Ed here, let's specify the dump for $140,000. The dump truck. The dump truck.
I thought I heard that in the original motion.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
I'm sure I did.
Yeah, the original motion was 140,000. Yeah. Okay, just I wasn't sure if it was or it wasn't, but if it was, that's cool.
Well, the minute taker will take care of that for us.
Right.
That's right.
Actually, I have it down here borrowing 140,000. So
Perfect.
somebody must have said it.
Perfect. All right, we're down to the fire department. We do have a decision here. We are preserving this item on the annual town meeting, thermal imaging cameras. These things are shot. We need to get 2 of them. They are important and kind of critical to public safety, and they're replacing what we already have, which is really not a usable system at this point in time. So the real question is on this one is we originally approved it out of the free cash account. It's worth pointing out that the free cash account currently has $20,000 in it. Of course, if you subtract 8,100, we can do the math on that. Do we want to continue to fund this out of free cash, or do we want to move it over to capital? Ed, I've done some analysis down here below. It's worth just telling you in case you have, because I don't care about this. Whether it comes from free cash or whether it comes from capital, unless you give me a good reason, it doesn't necessarily matter to me. And I'll tell you that whatever it is that we do fits both now into these accounts, and it also still allows us to fund the projects that we need to fund later. So does it matter?
The only thing to me was, would there be something on the operating side or another article that $20,000 in free cash might be valuable for? And that's the only reason that I thought of looking at it and with shifting some things around here of putting this and funding it back through the capital account.
Okay. And just to ask the question, is it easier to use, like, I get, obviously, so free cash, there's a free cash account, there's $20,000 in there. If we needed to use that if we needed to use, say, $20,000 for operating, is it easier to get that out of free cash than it would be to get it out of any residual left in the capital account?
Yeah.
Or are they the same process?
No, well, it's the same process, except the free cash vote is a majority vote. The capital stabilization is a 2/3 vote.
Okay. What do you folks want to do here? I'm kind of lined up with Ed on this.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same with. That's fine.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion? To approve the motions, approve thermal imaging cameras for fire. It probably should be either you or Roger.
Oh,
or
yep. So moved. So moved because Sharon has to abstain, right?
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that.
So
And
Roger, are you seconding?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thermal imagers coming out of.
out of the capital account.
Or capital, sorry.
Yep. So the motion's 8,100 thermal imaging cameras out of the capital account.
Yep. And who's making the motion?
I did.
Margaret. Who's seconding?
Roger.
Roger. Margaret, aye.
Roger, aye.
Sharon.
Danny.
Yep. And Roland, aye. Okay. I just moved this over to capital from free cash. So let me just do that right now so that I don't make any mistakes here.
Okay.
88.
There you go. Okay. Okay. So now we're down to town hall. And Ed, make sure that I don't overspeak about this, but I believe I understood what we spoke about on the phone today. I just want to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting it.
Sure.
Ed wants to remove and withdraw the telephone system from town hall. So for a couple of reasons. One, if you already don't know, like we do have a anticipated budget shortfall this year, and this will add to the operating budget as well as purchasing the system. So we think that it might be prudent both for annual town meeting to remove it, not necessarily postpone it and preserve the dollars for the fall, and reconsider it when we kind of clear this stage in our lives. Did I say that right, Ed?
Yeah, because this actually, the purchase cost of the phones, which would be the capital portion, actually figures out to around $2,500, which is actually below the normal capital threshold, but it also bears with it a $341 per month fees, which I would have to add into our town hall expenses, which is about $4,100 a year in the operating side, which I don't think is prudent at this point in time. So I just thought the best bet was to withdraw it for this point in time.
So there's that, and then he's recommending postponing the 6 desktop computers until the fall. I specifically asked him about this because this is one of my kind of thought processes as we approve, whether we approve things or not, with the capital committee. I try to think of things in buckets, being new ads to a new service, something that we don't have before that's like totally brand new. The second one being, are we replacing something, and is that something that we're replacing entirely self-contained, 1 or 2 units, and we were set and done with it for a period of time, or, and more importantly, I think, are we replacing something that is much bigger than what we're replacing? So in this instance, there's 6 computers. There's obviously more than 6 computers in town hall. There's an upwards of 20 of them. So they're on kind of this cycle. And what I worry about on this committee is the compounding effect of putting things off, which makes things harder to deal with over time. Like, you postpone 6 computers now and then it becomes 12 next year. It's just a harder pill to swallow. So Ed and I had this discussion he seems to think that by putting this off to the fall, or even if we had to put it off for a year, which we're not suggesting to do, that the compound effect of this, given what the present state of the computers in the town hall is that it wouldn't necessarily have a compounding effect immediately. If we went 2 years, it would, but if we went, as long as 1 year, it wouldn't. So it makes me comfortable to put this off. With some of these other things, it wouldn't necessarily if I feel like it's going to be a double number next year. But I didn't know what you guys' thoughts were on this.
So do they have to be desktops? Can they be laptops? And that is one of those things that you can get from the CARES Act.
Well, you can if it relates to the CARES Act or to COVID-19. In this case, they do not.
Right.
And you also increase the cost by about another 50 to 60% over what?
So they couldn't relate to the CARES Act if somebody had to be working from home. Somebody took their laptop home, whether it's the clerk, the accountant, Board of Health.
Yeah, for the ones that these would be aimed at, that would not really be the case. And one of the pieces we also found out when we were working from home and doing alternate work schedules is there were a number of people that actually don't have internet service at home and couldn't utilize a laptop.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting.
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yep. And at this point, there's 7 PCs which have already been funded through capital that we're waiting to install. So in my mind, by putting these 6 off into the fall, we'd at least get maybe 6 months of separation in between the 2 sets being installed. So that still gives us some separation of, should be able to replace those 7 and 6 again in the future in two separate different series over a couple of fiscal years, rather than having to replace 13 all at once. And then again, the final piece would be another 6 for fiscal year 22 request.
Okay, so the motion that somebody needs to make would be to just withdraw the telephone system entirely. That's going to get just postponed and reconsidered at a later time. We won't preserve the dollars for that right now, and then postpone the desktop computers until the fall.
So I'll make the motion for Town Hall to remove and reconsider at a later date the telephone system and postpone the desktop 6 units to the fall meeting.
Yep.
I'll second.
Margaret?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
And then Matt, aye. Okay, down to Hampshire Regional. This again is a decision point. So we've got our allocation. We can choose to fund this out of borrowing, or we can choose to fund this out of the capital account. I suggest that it could be that it is possible to still fund this out of the. Let me just make sure that this is correct. Down here. No,
it's not quite enough.
No, it's not enough. No, you'd have to take some out of free cash too. Yeah. So I mean, the action here would purely be borrowing. Does somebody want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll move to we borrow $55,450 for the HRHS HVAC system.
I'll second that.
All right, Margaret.
Aye.
Roger.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
And Matt, aye. Okay, so.
Okay, now with that, I'll throw another caveat out since you came so close to the capital stabilization account. Would you like to reconsider the thermal imaging cameras from free cash and then put the HVAC system into the capital account?
Because if we did that, let me just make sure that this math is working here. Hold on.
Okay.
I adjusted one thing. So capital stabilization.
So Ed, while he's doing that, what if something else came up as a result of COVID requirements or something else? Say Norris needed to add a bunch of items that weren't covered under the CARES Act, et cetera, and we've now depleted our capital account.
Well, in a normal year, we would have depleted it anyway.
But we know it's not a normal year.
No, we know it's not a normal year. But is there anything on here you would rather not fund?
No. What I'm asking is it just more appropriate to go ahead and approve the borrowing and keep that money in the stabilization account for potential other issues that may arise, just because we can't tell the future. So I'm just concerned about wiping out the account this year in particular.
And I'm actually concerned about borrowing from for the HVAC, to be honest with you.
Why is that?
Other four towns expensing it. So I'll be honest, I am really against borrowing for the HVAC for Hampshire Regional. I am going to let my feelings be known on that to the select board. I just think it's a number of steps we have to go through that wouldn't be necessary. And theoretically, if something comes up, whether it's at Norris or whatever that's COVID related, theoretically it should be either 75% reimbursable by FEMA, or there's a phase 2 of the CARES Act that's coming up also.
Right. Okay.
So
is your
go ahead, Margaret.
Is your reluctance to borrow purely based on what the other towns are doing, or about our particular financial situation? If we were looking at this, just as a one-off, just for Southampton, or is it, So I guess I need to understand what your concerns are.
It's a little bit of both. I mean, predominantly, it's extra steps for us with the other four towns expensing it. To go through and have to borrow our portion of it. So that is one piece of it. The other piece is, as we look at looking to borrow for the 1 ton, the cruise and the cruiser, there's another borrowing perhaps weaken our position on the cruise.
So just a couple of things I want to interject on this. Like, Ed, I'm not in total disagreement of you, but a couple things that I heard at this meeting that I believe you were in attendance on is, number one, like this has been done before. It sounded like it was very easy to do when we had this discussion a few weeks ago with regard to our allotment and how to fund it. It didn't seem to be a big deal at the time if we did a borrowing on it versus a pay for it outright, and it didn't seem to matter at the time that what the other towns were doing. What say you to that? I mean, I was at that meeting, and it seemed like this has been done before. The agreement has already been drawn up previously, and it would be relatively simple. I think Aaron spoke to that.
Well, it'll have to be amended, so there's the cost there, and we'll have to send it off to bond counsel for the actual wording for the annual town meeting. But
okay. The other consideration that was on my mind is if we do that, the postpone. So down here, I did some analysis worth just kind of This is our total new spend on our capital account. This is our total short-term borrowing, and this is what our spend is in free cash. So we're doing no free cash. We're doing 251 in dump truck and HRHS and police cruiser. So these are the three things: cruiser, HRHS, and dump truck. And then we're doing 105,000 and change in capital stabilization. These right here are where our three accounts are currently at. So obviously we're dealing with 154 in cap stabilization and the 20 grand in free cash. So if we take into account these numbers up here, the total available in the fall for cap stabilization, if we leave everything the way that it is going to be 48,744. Okay, op stabilization is going to stay the same, and so would free cash, because we didn't, I'm going to just make this number correct, because we didn't take anything from it. Okay, we put off the following items above. We put off the library security system, the scanner for the building department, the tasers, and the town hall computers, and we were trying to preserve that money for the fall. That money adds up to $33,000. $48,000 is what we have in the account. So presumably if nothing changes between now and the fall town meeting, we would have enough to cover those items that we, previously considered, previously thought were important, and previously approved, have since postponed. So we have done basically our part to, basically not send those back, but we've done the time and energy to account for that. The debt exclusion that we put off is the dump truck, 247,000, and the value of the items withdrawn entirely, which are the Norris projectors, Norris dividers, and the town hall telephones, is 26,000. So we don't need to consider that in the future, but that's effectively what we've saved here is 25 grand. We've added in 55. The question is of where it comes from.
Right, and actually, your point that if you didn't borrow for the HRHS HVAC system and funded that out of capital, then you really wouldn't have enough money left to fund what we want to do at a special fall town meeting. So from that particular selling point, you're really better back to borrowing for the HRHS project.
Is that how you feel, or do you want us to, or do you, I mean,
going in, I think, when we were working on this before, Matt, I think both of our intents was to try to preserve that funding so we could go forward with these items that we wanted to postpone at the town meeting. So.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative, obviously, though, is and I'm not sure if this is legal or if we could do this, but I mean, are we able to? I mean, because look, we're moving money around between borrowing and capital, and I do want to be somewhat sensitive to your needs and to the work that kind of goes into this. I sympathize with it, I sincerely do. But with that being said, I do feel like our capital account money should be spent on whole town budgets and projects, as opposed to things that we share that are considered shared resources. But with that being said, I mean, we've got basically $33,000 that we're postponing to the fall. If we were to move the HRHS system into our capital account, it would effectively draw it down to about $1,000. We'd never be able to fund these, but could we just bundle all of these up into a short-term borrowing in the fall?
Bundle all of what?
These right here, the items that are not necessarily within the same category, the library security cameras, the scanner, the tasers, and the town hall computers.
Not really.
Because they don't fit together.
Well, it's not that they don't fit together. Really, some of them really don't necessarily have the useful life or whatever that you'd want to see for a borrowing. So I would not go there.
Okay.
Or I'd not recommend going there, I should say.
Okay. Are you more comfortable, Ed? I don't want to upset you. And I mean that.
No, I'm good with that. Yeah, after hashing it all out, I think that makes sense.
Okay, I'm just what I added to the spread. Obviously, you can see what I added to the spreadsheet. I basically took your spreadsheet. Ed did most of this, by the way. I just added this analysis section because I wanted to try to do the right thing, and we're obviously going to be telling some of these departments that they're not getting what we initially approved, and so we're kind of walking back our previous approval, which I feel bad about because it almost feels a little bit about. There's no PC term for it, so I'm not going to say it. But you give something and then take it away. It just feels a little disingenuous. But I want to be able to send the message along with the taking away that look like we've actually reserved this amount of money to be able to deal with this in the fall. And the primary thing that we're trying to do is remove town articles, and we've effectively removed. From the list, we've effectively removed, the three down here: Norris projector, dividers, and town hall telephone. So that's 3 there, and we've moved library security, scanner, tasers, and town hall computers. So we've moved 7 items. We've removed seven articles from our original capital list, which I mean, personally.
Right. And in terms of the decisions that we're making to put things off, have all of those been reviewed with the various department heads?
Probably all except the library security system.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's something that, is a really nice to have, but doesn't affect their day-to-day operations.
Exactly.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. When I had the conversation with Chief Illingsworth earlier today about the tasers, he actually thought it was a good idea to remove them at this time anyway because of everything that's going on in the world and the lobbying for cuts to police department budgets and whatever. And he actually thought that requesting the tasers at this particular time may send the wrong message.
Yep. And just to revise my statement, we're actually removing 8 items. The items that we're removing are all down here. So we're removing, library security 1, 2, 3, 4, the dump truck 5, and then the 3 down at the bottom. So we're removing 8 articles, which I think is I think it's a pretty big effort.
Well, and the projectors, and those were already paid for. So we don't want to make it sound like we're just not funding them. They were, so when it gets discussed, if it comes up, we want to make sure that's, it's withdrawn because it's paid for.
Yep. Oh, sorry. Anyone else? Ed, anything else?
I don't think so. The committee actually you did vote on the borrowing for the HVAC, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that was the last one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're covered.
Yes, that was covered.
Okay.
All right, I move to adjourn unless there's something else.
Can I get a copy of that, Matt?
Copy of what?
This spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet.
Oh, the spreadsheet. Yeah, I'll email it to the group. What I'll do is I'll remove the top section just for confusion's sake, and I'll does everybody have Excel, or do you want me to export this into Word? I mean, how do people want to see this?
Excel's fine. I use numbers for Mac, but
I was going to ask, what is Excel?
Oh,
nice.
What? Matt, can you email that?
Yeah, I can. I'll send it in multiple formats.
You can also send it in a PDF too.
Yeah, I'll send it in multiple formats.
Yeah, PDF. I know what that is. I got those.
I like the Excel, but if you send it in both formats, we're all covered.
All right. Okay.
And next meeting date, TBD?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only way we would meet again is if the select board kicks anything, disagrees with our assessment, that it might get kicked back. But yeah, I think it's all TBD.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Ed, is there anything? I'm trying to move my my screen around here. Was there anything else on our agenda? I don't think so.
No, that covers it all because you didn't have any minutes.
No.
Yeah, we did the Hampshire Regional, which hadn't been decided before, so. Yep, we're good.
Okay, great.
Hey.
Who moves to adjourn?
I already did that, so we need a second.
I'll second it.
I jumped the gun.
Roger, second.
Margaret, I.
Roger, aye.
Sharon, I.
And Matt, aye.
Thank you all very much.
All right. Thanks.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.